Got it.
What's good, y'all? This is Robert Jackson. Thank you for tuning into the podcast. And yeah, I know that much has been going on as of late. We just, on the podcast, I usually do this just to, we're just here to have positive, good times and just nice chats and all that good stuff. So today we're going to be talking to a guest that I've been meaning, I wanted to have for like a while, but so many delays kept happening. So we're finally that we worked this out today. So ladies and gentlemen, Kevin M Connolly, how are you doing, my good sir?
I'm great, thank you. Actually, it's Kevin M Connolly.
Connolly, okay. Cannoli,
No,
like
you're not the first.
Italian cannoli.
I used to say I'm like, like cannoli oil. No, not really, not really.
Yeah,
Bad joke, awful joke. I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much for letting me chat with you today. I really appreciate it.
of course, of course. This is probably going to be one of my shorter ones, because today has just kind of been like, all over the place. So,
Sure.
regardless, let's get this show on the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually I ask, yeah, how did you get started in blah, 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 but,
Sure.
I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
So, instead, I'm going to ask you, um, so what was it that really started, like, I guess, what set off that creative, like, acting itch for you? Like, what was it that really set you off?
A girl. A girl.
Oh,
In all
okay.
honesty, there was a girl. I my very first girlfriend for 3 months in a youth group I was in many years ago. She broke up with me because I was too scared to tell my parents I had a girlfriend, and I knew she was in theater. So when I was in my sophomore year in high school, I had to take an elective. And I thought, maybe, I'd get into theater, and if she's still doing theater, maybe we can do theater down the road somewhere and we can hang out. Weird, that's my 13-year-old brain process. But that very first day in acting class with my teacher, the true inspiration, Mrs. Tammy Frazier, within the first week, I was hit with this creativity bug, and I don't mean just acting. I mean I've been a light designer and a set designer, and I do set construction and all that stuff. So it was that sophomore year in high school with Mrs. Frazier and Paula, the girl that who I'm still friends with today. Actually, I hung out with her husband and twin boys a few years ago out here. So that's all full circle. But it was her and my acting teacher in high school, Mrs. Frazier, who really just set everything off for me.
Yeah. Well, that is pretty interesting. I really don't get something like this.
Sure.
What started your career in acting? It was a girl.
Yeah, it was a girl. Totally. Absolutely. There it is.
Yeah.
High school, 13 years old. What is love? You know?
What is love?
Exactly. Exactly. But like I said, and I'm in touch with Mrs. Frazier today. She was amazing teacher, and she and her husband, who I'm friends with, were just amazing artists in themselves, and the enthusiasm and encouragement and allowing us to really kind of find our creative voices through doing Shakespeare and other plays and that kind of thing was really kind of where it began, and I just never stopped. So
Right on, right on. So,
yeah.
yeah. With your experience of acting and all of that stuff that you've
Mhm.
done before, what would you say were some of your fondest memories? Like
Oh
that you
wow.
remember, that you recall? Yeah.
Um, it comes down to, I mean, it's getting to work with cast. People have often asked me, if I could just do, because I call myself an actor. I'm not a voice actor. I'm an actor who does theater. I do some TV film, and I happen to work a lot in voiceover. But at my core, I'm an
Mhm.
actor. I bring a character to life from a script. Um, and so theater has often been really because you're rehearsing with other people. I mean, you're in rehearsal for weeks and getting to really find a character and play. And so like I did a play, it's called No Sex Please We're British, which is a 70s comedy, and I played this bumbling bank guy, and I remember just so many sight gags, very very Britishy humor, and it was my first play in Dallas when I'd moved to Dallas, and it was such a joy to work on with an amazing cast and just almost nonstop laughing. Um, much younger with much more hair and very much thinner. I played I think it was Lysander in A Midsummer Night's Dream, but it was a Tex-Mex version with the San Antonio Symphony. So we had this beautiful orchestra behind us with the Children's Choir of San Antonio doing Mendelssohn's incidental music behind all of our scenes. And we're wearing like handmade Native American costumes and props to bring out the aspect of the approach we were taking. And it was, performing for 3,000 people in one of the most beautiful theaters in San Antonio, which was uh, there's nothing like that feeling of being able to experience these words written by some of the great masters of playwriting with an entire audience like that. Then I can jump to doing a play called gosh, what was it called now? I can't remember. Nice People Dancing to Good Country Music, which was a 4-person play done in a little tiny cellar theater with maybe can hold 50 people at most. And again, castmates that were amazing, and but just the journey of it. It was a play where the first act was at the in the parking lot of a bar, and then the second act was on a balcony kind of setting on top of the bar. And we're talking a stellar theater, so the roof was just like right here above our heads. And we actually found this miniature real pickup truck. We rolled it on its side, we pushed it into the theater, got it on the stage, and then our set designer built this entire little house frame around it for the second act, to the point where the reviewer in the paper said, "Stay for intermission and watch a pickup truck disappear." Because it was just completely covered. It's just amazing. I mean, so just experiences like that have been truly some of my most my greatest memories. And hopefully getting back to theater. I mean, I'd like to do some more theater next year to get back to that kind of energy of working with other creative people at the same time. Whereas, because in voiceover, especially with anime, it's just me, the director, and the engineer. We don't work with each other unless it's like a Wallace session or something. So it's just, all by ourselves. We do our line, we get in, we do our lines, and we leave. So it's a great job, don't get me wrong, but there's definitely a whole different life to when you get to be with other creative artists around you and a director, and really bringing something to life over a matter of weeks. So that's it. There's my short answer. Sorry.
I mean, no, 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 no. Like, I love hearing people ramble on,
Oh yeah.
especially here.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is this, like, really no joke. If you've like checked out any of my other interviews, like they kind of go on for like over an hour, 2 hours, because
Oh
we just have so
sure.
much to talk about.
Oh yeah,
Because
absolutely.
to be fair, that's partially on me because that's pretty much what I decided to,
Fair
how
enough.
I have this podcast all laid out. But anyways, let's see. So. So, I know that this question you might have gotten like a few times whenever you do one of these, but how did you get started working in anime? Like, what got your foot in the door with Funimation and, got
Sure.
your foot in the door for anime?
It literally was a pure accident being in the right place at the right time. It really was, and no one will ever be able to recreate it. I hate to say it.
Yeah.
I'll try to do the short version of it. So when I was in grad school out here, actually in UCLA, one of my classmates one of my people in the class behind me is an actor named Vic Trevino, who any of your older listeners may know if they ever watched Pee Wee's Playhouse. He was Ricardo, the world's strongest man on that show. Um, and we're one of my best friends, and we took a class that we had an independent study together, and which meant we made our own schedule. And one day he said, "Kevin, I can't do 11 a.m. I got to do 1 because I've got a voiceover to do." We're talking 2000. We're talking 20 years ago. So keep that in mind as a reference of information that was available then compared to now. Um, so he comes in at 1 o'clock, and I say, "So what's this voiceover thing you're talking about?" And he says, "Well, I'm the Spanish spokesperson for Energizer." I'm like, "Really?" I said, "Well, what do you do?" He says, "Well, I'm in the studio here in LA. There's a producer in Chicago, a director in Philadelphia, and I was there for 25 minutes and I made this amount of money." And when he told me, I was like, I need to learn about voiceover. Um, so when I graduated, there was a big actor strike in LA going on. And so I moved back to Texas to work at the children's theater I used to do set and lights and all that stuff at, and teach. But then I began looking for every book I could find on voiceover. because obviously I'd studied theater, I'd studied film, but at the time, voiceover was still extremely difficult to get into, right?
Yeah.
And so I began and I was on Amazon every day looking for just, voiceover book, voiceover acting. I'd ask other actors, do you do voiceovers? I said, so how do you approach a commercial compared to how do you approach animation? Trying to figure out, the different techniques that every actor might have. And so I did that for about 3 years. And then I was staying with my folks at the time, and my dad just happened to notice all these packages from Amazon coming with all these voiceover books, and he'd ask me, he said, "Well, didn't you learn that in grad school?" I said, "No, it's such a tiny niche area, it's very hard to get into." Well, he happened to mention this to his best friend in Dallas, and he said, "You know what's funny is that in my office building," this is his friend saying this, Tom Tully said, "There's a voice actor. Do you want me to ask him if he'll have lunch with Kevin and talk to him about the business?" I said, "Yeah, sure." So my mom's from Dallas, so I drove up to Dallas, saw my family, and I met this guy. Um, and I'm embarrassed now because I'm blanking on his name. Oh my gosh, he was my first teacher. This is ridiculous. Oh, getting old sucks. Don't do it. Anyway, it'll come to me. He was the narrator on Fairy Tales for Funimation, if that helps at all, if anybody listening.
Yeah, maybe.
So he sat with me for Bob Magruder. There it is. Bob Magruder is his name. Took me to lunch. We talked about his career in Dallas. He was known as the voice of Dallas. Then actually had a studio, a single studio in his office. He put me in the booth, had me read some copy, and said, "Kevin, you're 80% there." He says, "You just need some more training in how to approach voiceover." I said, "Great." And he happened to mention that he did a 1-day workshop in Houston with a partner of his. I said, "Great." A couple months later, I ended up moving to Dallas to do theater and hopefully my goal was to get into SAG after there and then come back out to LA. So I emailed him. I said, "Hey, Bob, we met a couple of months ago. I'd love to come to one of your workshops in Houston. If there's a newsletter or can I be put on a list, you can, I get notified about it." He says, "Kevin, I've got a voiceover class here in Dallas in 2 weeks. You send me $100, you're in." I could not write that check fast enough to get to him. Now, in the interim of that, I was having dinner with a friend of mine who also used to work at the Children's Theater with me, an amazing actress and singer. And she said, "So Kevin, what are your goals in Dallas?" And I said, "Well, I want to learn about voiceover." She goes, "I want to learn about that too." I said, "Well, we'll compare notes." So she calls me the next day and says, "Kevin, I found this company called Funimation. They do something with English dubs and Japanese cartoons." I said, "Okay, I'll see what I can find out." So me being kind of just like I wonder what this button does, I called them. And I said, "Hey, I'm just curious what you all do." And they said, "Well, we do English dubs of." I reached one of the talent coordinators, and they said, "Well, we obviously do English dubs for Japanese or an Asian produced animation." I said, "Great." So I said, "Is there a casting director I could maybe submit material to, or is there a talent agent that you guys go through?" And he said, "Oh, no, just send in your demo. We'll put you on the audition list." I said, "Great, sure, I'll do that." Hung up. I don't know what a voice demo is, but I'm hoping to learn about it in class with Bob. So then I go to class, and it's like that. You ever been a new student in school when you go, "Hi, my name's Kevin. I've got a master's in acting, but I don't know anything about voiceover." And 3 seats down, this guy says, "Hi, my name is Mike McFarland. For the last 5 years, I've been an actor, writer, director, and producer at Funimation, and I'm looking to branch out into other areas of voiceover." And I look over and I'm like, "Oh my God, this is the guy I've got to talk to." And so we're doing copy all morning and getting instruction from Bob. And then we take a lunch break and he comes back. I'm sitting reading a book. I came back a little early and I hear this voice say, "So you're from San Antonio, huh?" And I look up and it's Mike. And I'm trying to be really cool and nonchalant, right? I'm saying, "Yeah, yeah. Oh, and you work for, was it Fun Times or Funimate or something like that?" And he said, "Yeah, yeah." I says, I do a lot out there." I said, "Well, it's funny. I just called them and they said to send a demo in for their audition list. So I'm hoping to learn about a demo here, but maybe I could pick your brain sometime if I could, take you to coffee or lunch or something." And he kind of rolled his eyes and went, "Ugh, the audition list." And I was like, what do you mean?" He says, "The audition list is a 2-year wait." I was like, "Oh boy. Well, I got 2 years to figure out how to make a good demo, I suppose." And he said, "No, no, no, no. You know what? You're trained. I like your voice. You've got good control over it. Give me your contact info and I'll bring you in for something." And 2 weeks later, I was in recording on Case Closed. And it just has continued since then. That's the crazy, weird, the universe saying, I'm going to line all this weird stuff up for you to do what you want to do. So that's how I look at it. But that's my story.
Yep, and that's the story of how I got here.
That's how story. So yeah. So and no one will ever be able to recreate it.
No, 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 no. Of course not. Of course not.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be really lucky, but even still, like,
It's true.
uh,
Yeah. It really is. I mean, just acting in general is well. I say luck. You have to be lucky, but you have to be
yeah.
prepared.
Hmm.
So like I get when I do panels at conventions about acting, I know a lot of young aspiring actors and voiceover actors come in saying, well, I can do 1,000 voices, why can't I get cast? And I said,
Oh
well,
yeah.
it's not just that. This is not reading into a microphone. You are bringing a character to life. What questions do you ask yourself when the moment you get in the booth? Why is this scene important? What is my purpose in this scene? What is my purpose in this story? Can you work with a director? Can you take direction? I mean, so there's so many elements that you really have to have available to you. And thankfully, I had just come out of basically 7 years of higher education in acting, still learning the techniques of voiceover, because that's kind of how I look at it. I'm an actor I do theater, I do TV film, and I do voiceover. Acting is asking questions and improvising and bringing a character to life, often under the guise of a creative vision of someone else, your director, right? But what changes is the stage you're performing on, whether it's a theater stage, a camera stage, or a microphone, like this. And so, what you also have to learn is how to approach each stage differently. But at its core, acting is acting is acting. And if you want to work in this industry, you've got to be a great actor because, I think a lot of people forget too, this is an extremely competitive business and your competition is great actors. So if you go in against someone who says, well, I've studied this technique and this is how I approach it. Here's my demo I had professionally produced. Here's my oh, hey, buddy. Sorry, the cat's in here. Compared to someone who goes in saying, I can do 1,000 voices, who do you think they're going to look at? So that's just something you really have to keep in mind.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Um, and it's so true because this is something that we just keep repeating over and over again. We just talk a lot on the podcast of how like acting, it's bringing a character to life. It's not how many different
absolutely.
voices you can do or like
Not at all.
yeah. And I know that a lot of people they want to be the next Mel Blanc or like Billy West, Tom Kenny, Billy West, and all those
Right.
guys. But it's
Absolutely.
the reason why they they have become they're beloved and so well they've become like they're industry legends just because they are just really great actors first and foremost. It's not
Exactly.
just like putting on a voice, just for I mean you can as in parties just for,
Oh, you
like
can,
giggles and
sure. I mean,
stuff,
you can go
impressions.
in and
Yeah.
you can try to put on a voice and read lines, but
Yeah.
if there's no life behind it, if there's no inspiration, if you
Yeah.
don't understand why the character is saying the words they're saying in a scene, you have, it's not a disembodied thing. It's you a character is three-dimensional and using I use my whole body when I'm acting. I mean,
Me too. Same.
so
Yeah.
yeah, and and I know it's frustrating for people to hear that. They're thinking, oh, and and I often add in a side note when someone says, well, I can do 1,000 voices. I said, well, let's say you get into the union SAG-AFTRA, they only pay you for four. Why are you going to
Oh
worry about
yeah.
9,996, or 996 voices when they're not going to pay you for that? So you have to, that's why on a demo, you just want your top five at most, and then and because the idea is that you can take those top five voices you kind of, you put into the character soup that you have, and you can intermix them into other voices when you're in the session. But, I mean, as obviously that, a voice demo is 60 seconds. That's all you get to show off. And that's your one opportunity. So you want to work on that and make sure that, that is actually in its top form and really represents you as an artist.
Yeah, of course. Solid advice. So let's talk about some of your roles. I know that your
Yeah,
first major role you had was Harley Hardwell in Case Closed. So
that
how was
was.
the experience? Yeah, how did it feel like actually stepping into the booth and just, voicing in an anime for the first time?
Well, that was actually the third time I'd gone in. So
Okay,
my
okay,
very first role was on Case Closed, and I'll never forget it. A character named Steve Jacobus.
okay.
And I remember just being so embarrassed because again, not only had I never done voiceover before, I had never done dubbing before. Now dubbing, because you're
Yeah.
doing this little thing, right? Because not only are you trying to perform and act to the script, but you're also watching the footage and you're having to time it out and match flaps. So you're activating both right brain and left brain at the same time. And so I was like, what is going on? What is happening? And like looking back, I think I had 11 lines, which today I could probably just do in probably about less than 10 minutes, but it was an hour and a half when I do it. Now, Mike, I have to give kudos to Mike, and I thank him every time as much as I can. He was so patient with me, knowing that I had not had the experience. I mean, I was like, I'm one of those actors that says, no, don't pay me. I suck at this, They did pay me for that, for that day. And there was some other factors, like we had to, because, also you have to pause to fix the script sometimes, so that, and this is another reason why we all record alone, because if we're having to take time to fix a line because it's too long, too short, and you have the rest of the cast waiting to do their lines, that's just a waste of time and money. That's why we do dubbing alone. I know a lot of people don't realize that, if I can share that. So then he called me in again a couple of weeks later to do a football player. And so this is a funny you mentioned this. So I do the football player number 2. And then he says, Kevin, great. Now I'm gonna have you audition for a character. I said, great. I had never done an audition at Funimation before, so I didn't know what the regular process was. And I found out that this was not the regular process. So I go in and we talk about the character a little bit. He shows me some footage of Harley. And then we kind of play with the voice a little bit. He's a little younger, a little higher in the voice. So he's a teenager. He's up here, right? Read some lines. Now, I found out later that that's usually how the auditions work. Auditions are usually held on Friday night. You get your 15 minutes to go in, you pick a couple characters, you go in the booth. You're not recording to picture or anything. You're just reading the lines, getting some direction, reread the lines, and then you go home. And then you find out later if you got cast, right? We finished that part. He says, great. Now let's go record to picture. That's what I didn't know was different. So we go to a different booth, and I literally recorded maybe like 2 or 3 lines, and that was done. I was like, okay, great audition. Maybe I'll get it. I don't know. 2 weeks later, I get a phone call saying, congratulations, you're Harley Hartwell. We need to book you for 2 episodes twice. So basically, I was going to record a two-parter with one director, and then that same week record another 2-parter with Mike. I was like, oh wow, this is amazing. Oh my gosh, I was nervous. I was excited. So I go in, and my director for the first 2-parter was Chris Kazin, who was has been very kind to me and a very good friend, who's actually out here now directing in LA and acting in LA. Now, what I learned in that moment, and I want to give this piece of advice to every actor who's done an audition, a voiceover audition, and you get cast maybe a week or 2 weeks later, always ask to listen to your audition if they don't offer it. Here's why. So I don't remember really, because I'd never done this before. I didn't really quite remember the voice I had done, but I'm nervous, and Chris is asking me questions. So this is your first time, and how do you know Mike, and just making sure everything's kosher. So we start doing the recording, and we kind of futz around with my voice a little bit. And he says, that's the voice I want you to use. I said, great. We get about 10, 15 minutes in, and I'm thinking in my head, I was like, this is not the voice I used for the audition. I think I was higher in my register. He's older than Conan, but he's still a teenager, And so I was like, Kiris, I think my voice may not be high enough. I don't think it matches what I did before. I can't tell. And I was like, he was like, I like it. We'll just move on. I said, okay, not knowing what I should have done in that moment. We record all day. We record all day, get through like 1 episode, come in the next day to work on the 2nd episode, right? And we're recording in this new voice, and Mike comes in. I'm in the booth, there's a window, and Mike comes in, and I can see his face, and they're kind of messing with me, pointing at me, laughing, and I'm like, oh, ha, 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 whatever, I can't hear them. I can't hear what they're saying. And then Chris gets on the talkback mic and says, hey, Mike needs you for 1 quick line, and we're going to go ahead and just stop and take lunch. I said, okay, great. So the moment I go over to Mike's thing, he said, I just need to record this 1 line for today. I said, okay. I record the line, and sure enough, the very first note Mike gives me is, Kevin, remember, he's younger. You got to get up that higher register. And I was like, oh, crap. I knew it. I did the wrong voice with Chris. I had a feeling I should have said something. And so I did the line in the, I'm Harley Hartwell. I go back to Chris after lunch and say, Chris, we got a problem, man. I said, I can remember how I kind of said I was worried about this. I should have asked more because Mike said it's higher, it's different. And Chris was like, you know what? I got you first. I mean, he may have cast you, but I love what you're doing, and I think we're going to stick with it. I said, okay, okay. I just, there's a problem here, I think, and I really messed up here. I should have said something. I go in the next, I get a call that night because we finish out with Chris. I get a call that night from the talent coordinator, Tara. She says, Kevin, I'm supposed to come in at 1 o'clock the next day. She goes, Kevin, is there any way you can come in at 10? And thankfully, my day job at the time are also theater people. And they were like, yeah, we can work around you. We can work around you. So I go in at 10, assuming I'm going to work with Mike for that next two-parter, right? I knock on Mike's door in his booth, and it kind of opens up all like, scary movie style, and it's dark inside. I'm like, whoa, I'm early, but that's, if you're 15 minutes early, you're late to a set, basically. So I go around and I see Chris. I say, hey, Chris, is Mike, am I early? Am I late? He says, actually, Kevin, you're with me today. I'm with you today. And he says, yeah. He says, when you auditioned, did you record the picture? I said, yeah. He says, so what happened is he had you audition, and in that moment, in that instance, he cast you as Harley. What you recorded was a trailer that has already gone out on a DVD. The editors came to us last night for our show that we just did and said the voice is different and it's wrong. So now we have to go back, and we had to re-record both episodes that day, re-record them with the proper voice that I should have said, hey, can I listen to my audition? Because it had to go out to Cartoon Network the next day. So I thought, I drove home thinking I will never get hired again. They hate me. I should have said something more. That's on me. And they were both very gracious about it. Said, hey, because look, keep in mind that directors, they're working with multiple talent. They're working with multiple writers. They're working with multiple episodes sometimes at the same time. I mean, they have so much going on that they're scheduling that I've kind of fell through the cracks. So, but it should have fallen on me to say, I need to listen to my audition. And so I figured that's it. My career in anime begun, and it has ended. But thankfully, both guys cast me again and other things, obviously. So that's the crazy story I have with getting Harley Hartwell.
No. I sure love to hear how you got like Takayuki Narumi and Rumbling Hearts, and also I'd love to hear Full Metal Alchemist as Kane Fury. Oh, that's gonna be a treat.
Those were very simple, actually. I mean, with Rumbling
Okay.
Hearts, Rumbling Hearts was just your traditional audition. Like I said, Friday night, they would send us an email saying auditions are Friday night, pick a 15-minute slot. If it's available, I picked one, I go in, I read, got a call. Fury was slightly different. I actually didn't read for Fury. I read for Scar and a scientist, but Mike and Colleen felt whatever in their infinite wisdom with heard what I did
You're
with
really
the
great.
scientist. Yeah, they whatever I did with, I can't remember what I mean. I did something like Fury like for the scientist. They said no, that voice would be great for Fury. So, which can sometimes happen. I mean, so usually when you audition for a company now, especially because everything's online. Like I had an audition for a live action dub just a couple days ago, and they sent the auditions for like 8 different male characters, but they only want you to read for 2 because obviously they're going to get tons of auditions. They don't want 8 auditions for me to listen to. So in that situation, I try to pick 2 that are very different vocally. That way they can actually come back later and say, you know what, we didn't pick you for either of these, but you sounded great. We think you're going to be perfect for this. And that happens all the time. So
Right.
but after that, pretty much, I mean, nothing really besides yeah, and I can't really think of any casting thing where it was well, I mean, the only other thing that, and this is a great feeling for any actor, is when we don't have to audition, where we got a call saying, yeah, we're just going to put you in the part, which has happened a couple times for me. So that definitely, compared to getting replaced, which is an awful feeling, and I have a crazy story about that if you want to hear it.
I think we have about 10 minutes left, so go ahead.
I could do 10 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm the original voice of Vladimir in League of Legends. One of my first jobs here in LA about 10 years ago. About a year after I did it, I get an email saying, "Hey, Vladimir's getting a new costume. Would you be available if there's some new dialogue to come in and record?" I'm like, "Yeah, totally. I mean, who's going to turn down a job, right?" Um, Nothing, crickets. So about 6 months later, I'm putting together my website, my first website. I thought, hey, it might be kind of cool to have like YouTube links of people playing Vladimir in League, and see if I can link them to my website so people can see and hear the character. Oh, sorry, the other cat sleeps on top of my booth. Dreamer. No, she's fine. And so I go on YouTube and I start looking, Vladimir voice, League of Legends, and I see this whole series of Dreamer. Sorry. I see this whole series of titles saying voices of League and different character names. I'm like, ooh, what's this? And I see Vladimir and I click it and I play it. And there were two things I noticed. One is that it was obviously somehow someone was able to pull the audio directly off of the server or whatever, because it was our studio audio. No sound effects, no music, just the original audio. And the second thing I realized is that it wasn't me. It was someone much deeper, great voice, great actor. I have no clue who it is. Come to find out a few years later that apparently there was a new producer when they were doing all the upgrade costumes, the DLC, who didn't like all the original writing and a lot of the original actors. And so he recast like 30 people or something like that. So I was
Wow.
like, that's the biz.
Yeah, sure is.
Cut to 10 years later, I get an email from my agent saying, "Kevin, somebody called the office asking about your union status. Are you a paid up member?" And at that time, I'm like, now I'm a paid up SAG-AFTRA union actor. I'm like, "What's it for?" It's like, "I don't know." The next day, I get an email from this guy saying, "I'm the casting director for this company. We're doing a new game called Cards of Runeterra. Vladimir is going to be in it." Now, I read that sentence and thought, oh, you want me to reprise the part, if you will, that I originated. No. The client would like to know if you'd like to audition for it. I'm like, audition for my own part? Okay, sure. Why not? So I get the audition. Similar picture to what I had 10 years ago, similar dialogue, but at the very bottom it says, "Vladimir is a character in League of Legends. We are not looking for a voice match to the original actor, but the essence of his performance." An audition that literally said, "We don't want Kevin Connolly, but we want someone who has the essence." And I didn't book it. And why that's frustrating. Well, I mean, that's the business, but because it was a union job, it was a lot more money. And there we are. That's how crazy this business is. So I've been replaced twice on a character.
Jeez.
Maybe someday I'll return to it. Who knows?
Someday. So,
Someday.
yeah. Is there like anything else that you want to share, like any upcoming work or projects that you're working on right now that
Sure.
doesn't involve you breaking NDA
Oh, sure, sure,
and
sure.
get you in
Yeah,
trouble?
no.
Yeah,
I mean, it's been out for a couple of months now. I played German
shared
Gobert
stuff.
on a MAME. I forget the subtitle of that, but that was a fun villain to play. And then I'm back as the narrator on Welcome to Demon School, but I'm also playing, voicing a teacher this season 3, Mr. Hat, who I'm very excited about. And I'm trying to think if I have it. Sorry, stupid cat. But that's the most recent stuff. I don't think I have anything else really in the pipeline. I have one character I've been waiting, but again, this just goes, I can't tell you what it is, but I recorded it over 2 years ago. And so it's a video game, but that's how the video game business works. So, there's still probably programming and it can take forever for something to come out. But the moment it comes out, I'll be sharing it with the world. So I'm very excited about it.
Yeah.
There we are.
Alrighty. Yeah. Do you have like any last piece of advice to give to the people out there before we
Educate yourself. Educate yourself about acting, about home recording, about equipment. Because if you want to compete, you've got to be prepared. Okay. I do some cast. Oh, there's the cat. What are you doing, Dreamer?
Hello.
Hello. Hey, Dreamer, say hi. Selfish. That's what you are. But no, I did really, it's Google things. I mean, I've had many people say, "How do you get a voice demo?" I said, "Well, look on Google. Listen to demos, understand what makes a good demo great. Listen to terrible demos, so you know what makes a demo terrible, so that you don't make that same mistake. And
Yeah.
find your voice, find your unique voice. That's what you bring, and just enjoy the work. Bring character. It's. I'll finish with this: is that sometimes when I talk to young aspiring actors, I say, why do you want to be a voice actor? I said, well, I can be famous. I want to sign autographs and do conventions. I said, okay, but what makes you famous? He says, I just by doing the shows. I said, well, what does that mean doing shows? And they can't answer that. And I say, look, commit to doing great acting work and success will follow. It has to. It'll be inevitable. But commit to the art of what you're doing, because again, your competition is always working harder than you. What are you going to do about it? Ask yourself, why should somebody pay you money for your art, for your creativity, and then be prepared for anything that can come up. Read those acting books, take those acting classes, read about how to record at home, and look up equipment and find out what works best for you. Don't ever stop learning. I'm still taking classes when I can from different areas. So it's always about just learning, learning, learning. There we are.
Right. So what's your social media? Where can people find your
Oh,
stalk you? Wherever.
super easy though. Of course, obviously with all the Twitter drama that's going on, I am at Twitter and Instagram at Kevin M Connolly. I believe my Facebook page is Kevin M Connolly Official. And then I'm on Twitch. I do a Twitch show with a friend of mine who is a heavy metal bassist in a couple of bands in England. And I'm Kevin Darkmoon, KEVYNDARKMOON on Twitch. Come check it out every Tuesday, the Carl and Kevin Show. And that's about it right now. I may be going back to Tumblr. We'll see what all this Twitter drama is all
Boy,
about.
Tumblr. Wow. Okay.
Well,
That'll be interesting.
I just saw that Ryan Reynolds has just moved back over there. So
So
he's the
that'll be
one. He's the one that saved me from testicular cancer. So I'm going to follow him wherever he goes.
Oh, that's wow,
I'll share
that's
that
really
story
touching.
next time if you want to have me on.
Yeah, probably on another day, another time. But
Absolutely.
yeah,
No, but Deadpool
right.
saved me from testicular cancer. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. We'll save that for part two.
Part two. We'll
And
do it. We'll do it, my friend.
yeah. So do you want to do like an outro for the podcast? Anyways?
Sure. Well, what's the podcast called again? Just remind
The
me.
Station Square podcast. You could say,
Station
my name is Kevin Connolly. I do this, blah, 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 blah. And you're watching the Station Square podcast.
Station Square.
Station Square podcast.
Station Square. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. I'm Kevin M Connolly. I'm an actor, and I invade your ears in anime. And you're listening right now to me talking to you on Station Square. Enjoy.
There we go. Yee.
Yeah.
So, anyways, thank you so much, Kevin. It's
Thank
been a
you, my
real
friend.
pleasure having you on. And if you've stumbled upon this video on YouTube, let me know your thoughts and leave a comment if you enjoyed this one. And stay tuned for more interviews coming whenever they'll be posted. Until then, this is Robert Jackson, and I'm out of here at least for today, at least. So, yeah, I'll see you all next time. And yeah, take it easy, stay safe, stay happy, stay positive, and yeah, adios, amigos.
Adios.
Bye. Peace.